Welcome back to 20th century history. I'm back with the long video section. As I promised, the shorts with the most interactions will get an in-depth version of the history. Today's video isn't just another story from the past. It's a brutal, riveting, cinematic deep dive into one of the most misunderstood war machines of World War II. An aircraft that terrified the men who flew it, earned one of the deadliest nicknames in aviation history, and then fought its way to becoming one of the most successful Allied bombers of the entire war. This is the saga of the Martin B-26 Marauder, the bomber that pilots once called the Widowmaker. But it didn't stay a Widowmaker. Through discipline, brutal lessons, and sheer skill, the crews who mastered this aircraft transformed it into the safest and most accurate medium bomber of World War II. Today, you're going to hear the truth. Not the polished version, not the Hollywood version, but the raw, ruthless reality. The crashes, the fear, the engineering, the redemption. This is a full-length cinematic history documentary, crafted for you, the viewers who appreciate real stories, real history, and the machines that shaped our world. So sit back, turn up your volume, and let's step into the cockpit of a bomber that demanded perfection and punished anything less. This is Martin B-26 Marauder, the Widowmaker that fought back. Let's begin. Part 1 and his chapters will include: Chapter 1, a bomber pilot's feared more than the enemy. Chapter 2, the birth of a monster, the design that created the danger. Chapter 3, first flights, first deaths. Chapter 4, the turning point begins. Let's start. Chapter 1, a bomber pilot's feared more than the enemy. Before the Martin B-26 Marauder became one of the most successful Allied bombers of World War II, it earned another title, a darker, crueler name: the Widowmaker. And the men who flew it didn't whisper that nickname lightly. In 1942, the Marauder was killing American airmen faster than German fighters ever could. It wasn't sabotage, it wasn't enemy fire. It was the aircraft itself. Short wings, high landing speeds, brutal stall behavior. A bomber that punished the untrained, the careless, and the unlucky. Some pilots called it the Baltimore Whore because, as they put it, with those short wings, she had no visible means of support. It was meant as a joke, but the punchline was written in funerals. In the first year of B-26 operations, the training accident rate was catastrophic. Crews feared the aircraft. Commanders didn't know how to control its reputation. Politicians wanted it canceled. The Army Air Forces were forced to ask a chilling question: did we build a weapon or a coffin with engines? But here's the twist: the most feared bomber of 1942 would become the safest and most accurate medium bomber of the entire war. This is the brutal story of how the B-26 Marauder went from a death trap to a legend. Let's go to the Chapter 2, the birth of a monster, the design that created the danger. In the late 1930s, the U.S. Army Air Corps wanted something no nation had ever dared to build: a fast, heavily armed, medium bomber that could outrun fighters. Not just survive, outrun. That was the requirement. Glenn L. Martin, head of the Glenn L. Martin Company, saw an opportunity. He proposed a design that broke every comfort zone: a high-speed airframe, twin Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp radial engines, a streamlined fuselage, extremely short wings for reduced drag. Some engineers warned that the wing loading would be dangerously high. High wing loading meant higher landing speeds, sharper stall angles, less margin for pilot error. But Martin pushed the design forward anyway. He was under pressure. The nation was preparing for war. Contracts meant power. And the Army Air Corps, seduced by the promise of speed, signed the deal. Let's go to the numbers that shaped its fate. Let's be ruthless with honesty here. The Marauder's danger was mathematical before it was mechanical. Its wing loading was extreme. 47.5 pounds per square feet, far higher than comparable bombers. Landing speeds at 130–140 miles per hour, unheard of for the era. Stall characteristics sharper than a razor. A narrow tricycle undercarriage that demanded perfection. And a cockpit visibility arc that punished misjudgment. No training program in the world at that time, rushed, sloppy, and panicked by war, could produce enough skilled pilots to handle that. So yes, the design created the danger. The training multiplied it. Next is Chapter 3, First Flights, First Deaths. The first B-26s entered service in early 1941. Training bases were set up in Florida, where new pilots, many barely out of flight school, climbed into a bomber that demanded expert hands. What the Army failed to accept was brutally simple. They were giving a thoroughbred racehorse to men who had barely rid. And ponies. And the B-26 did not forgive. Not incompetence. Not distraction. Not inexperience. Pilots tried to take off with insufficient airspeed. The Marauder crushed them. They tried to land like they landed B-18s or B-25s. The Marauder snapped, stalled, and destroyed them. One misjudged flare, one shallow approach, one hesitation. That was all it took. Let's talk about the training disaster. This is where the story gets ugly. There's no polite way to tell it. So we won't try. We'll tell it honestly. Accidents skyrocketed. Training bases became graveyards. Instructors were terrified. Trainees begged for reassignment. Aircraft were destroyed not by enemy fire, but by their own physics. Local civilians near MacDill Field joked grimly that the safest place to be was inside a B-26 hangar, because the bombers crashed everywhere else. This wasn't exaggeration. It was pain turned into dark humor. The Marauder earned its nickname, the Widowmaker, during these months. And it earned it with bodies. Next theme is about the politicians that step in. By 1942, the death toll was so severe that Congress, yes, the actual United States Congress, stepped in. Hearings were held. Complaints were filed. The press got involved. Families demanded accountability. It reached a point where the aircraft came within inches of cancellation. Officials asked, "Did we build a bomber or a national embarrassment?" Pilots testified. Instructors testified. Even generals began to flinch. The pressure was enormous. Martin defended his creation fiercely. There is nothing wrong with the B-26. There is something wrong with how it is being flown. That statement infuriated pilots who had lost friends. It sounded arrogant, insensitive, detached. But here's the ruthless truth. Martin was right. Not morally, not emotionally, but technically. The B-26 wasn't a bad aircraft. It was simply an advanced aircraft, forced into the hands of unprepared men. Don't relax, we go to Chapter 4. The turning point begins. Everything changed because of one thing. Training was redesigned from the ground up. Top pilots, men who understood aerodynamics and flew the Marauder to its limits, rewrote the curriculum. They taught new pilots how to respect the B-26, how to fly it properly, how to think ahead of it, not chase behind it. They drilled discipline into crews, precise airspeeds, longer takeoff rolls, proper flap settings, two-stage approaches. No sloppy flying. It was harsh, unforgiving instruction, the kind that made weak men quit and strong men sharper. And slowly, the death rate fell. Accidents dropped. Confidence rose. The Widowmaker began to reveal the truth beneath the myth. If you mastered the B-26, it was one of the best bombers in the sky. This is an end of part 1. Be ready for the part 2 and next chapters when we will talk about war, stories, the raid, survival statistics, etc. The chapters of part 2 will include Chapter 5, Baptism by Fire, the Marauder goes to war. Chapter 6, The Precision Killer. Chapter 7, Survival Statistics that shock historians. Let's go to Chapter 5, Baptism by Fire, the Marauder goes to war. Training was one thing. War was another. And in early 1942, just months after America entered World War II, the Martin B-26 Marauder was thrown directly into combat. No easing in. No slow build-up. Straight into the furnace. The bomber's first major combat theater was the Pacific, a place where everything was trying to kill you. The heat, the weather, the jungle, the Japanese fighters, and for Marauder crews, the hardest enemy of all, their own aircraft's unforgiving nature. Next theme is the first combat losses, not the story you want, but the one you need. When the B-26s arrived at bases like Townsville and Port Moresby in 1942, the crews were inexperienced, the conditions brutal, and the aircraft still had its vicious training era bite. On some operations, B-26s failed to return without ever seeing a single Japanese aircraft. Fuel mismanagement, overheating, navigation errors in tropical storms. The Marauder was a thoroughbred forced to gallop in a minefield. Onward, how not to mention the first redeeming moment, the raid on Rabaul. April 1942. Rabaul, the Japanese fortress in New Britain, was one of the deadliest targets on the planet. Strong anti-aircraft guns, agile Zero fighters, rugged terrain that punished any damaged aircraft. The B-26 Marauders were ordered to strike it. And this time, the bomber showed what it could do when flown with discipline. Marauders swept in at low altitude, engines roaring, practically skimming the jungle canopy. They were fast, so fast that many Japanese gunners simply couldn't track them. But then came the historic moment. A B-26 became the first American bomber to strike a Japanese aircraft carrier. The Ryuge. April 9, 1942. The Marauders survived the run, weaving through flak with a stubbornness that shocked both the Japanese and the Americans. It wasn't perfect. Many were damaged. Some didn't make it home. But one truth became unavoidable. For the first time, the Marauder proved that speed wasn't a gimmick. It was a weapon. Let's go to the next one, Chapter 6, The Precision Killer. By late 1942, B-26s were moving into the European and Mediterranean theaters. North Africa, Sicily, Italy, and here, away from the storms and chaos of the Pacific, the Marauder began to transform. The 12th Air Force, turning the monster into a surgeon. Under the 12th Air Force in the Mediterranean, pilots trained harder, flew smarter, and finally began mastering the aircraft's quirks. The Marauder's speed became an advantage no enemy could ignore. Axis gunners had seconds to get a firing solution. It flew bombing runs at altitudes and speeds that made flak nearly useless. The next topic will be about the crew, 6 men, one chance to get it right. Inside the Marauder, every man had a job that left zero room for mistakes. One pilot and co-pilot. fighting the controls, managing high landing speeds, keeping the aircraft stable through turbulence that felt like fists. 2. Bombardier, operating the Norden bomb site, a technological miracle that turned precision into an art form. With the Marauder's stability at high speed, he could put bombs through windows. 3. Navigator, keeping the bomber on the right path in skies filled with flak, and fighters that weren't supposed to exist on the radar. 4. Radio operator and gunner, eyes, ears, and last chance backup. 5. Tail gunner, the loneliest job in the sky, alone in a glass coffin at the rear of the aircraft, waiting for German fighters to come screaming in. The next topic is the speed that saved them. Enemy fighters hated the Marauder because it outran them. German pilots nicknamed it Der Rauchkerl, the tough guy. Even the dreaded FW-190s had trouble catching it during bombing runs. The Marauder wasn't just fast. It was engineered to stay fast even when damaged. Crew reports show B-26s returning with shredded control surfaces, missing flaps, half-dead engines, holes big enough to crawl through, and still making it back to base. And the last topic of Chapter 6 is the numbers don't lie. Let's be clinical, brutal, and honest, the way history should be told. The B-26 Marauder became the most accurate medium bomber of World War II. You'll seldom hear that sentence, but it's true. Its Norden bomb site accuracy rates were higher than the B-25, A-20, A-26, or even most British medium bombers. Why? Because at speed, the B-26 was extraordinarily stable, rock solid, predictable, deadly, a fast bomber that held itself together in the most punishing parts of a mission. Let's slowly go towards Chapter 7, survival statistics that shock historians and his topics. This is the moment in the documentary where the true TH flips the story upside down. Because the Widowmaker, the death trap, the bomber pilots once refused to fly, became the safest Allied bomber of the entire war. Read that again. The safest. The next topic will be the lowest loss rate of any Allied bomber. By 1945, the B-26 Marauder achieved something no historian predicted. Lowest loss rate per sortie of any USAAF bomber, light or heavy. Better than the B-25. Better than the B-17. Better than the B-24. Better than the A-20. Better than every single one. This wasn't luck. It was engineering plus experience plus discipline. The same traits that made it lethal to untrained rookies made it nearly invincible in the hands of professionals. Another topic will be, a bomber redeemed the brutal truth. The Marauder didn't magically change. The pilots changed. The training changed. The strategy changed. And suddenly the aircraft's greatest weaknesses became its most devastating strengths. Let's break it down ruthlessly. High wing loading. Deadly for beginners, but perfect for stable high-speed bombing. Short wings. Brutal at low speed. Magnificent at combat speed. High landing speeds. Punished sloppy technique. Rewarded discipline and precision. Aerodynamic efficiency. A nightmare for slow flight practice. A blessing when outrunning fighters. The B-26 demanded respect and gave domination in return. The last topic of Chapter 7 is the transformation complete. By 1944, Marauder crews carried themselves like elite units. And for good reason. They were flying the safest bomber in the U.S. inventory. Their kill-to-loss ratios skyrocketed. Their bombing accuracy was unmatched. Some Marauder groups flew over 400 missions, without losing a single aircraft to enemy action. That is not just rare. It is historic. Thank you for coming this far with us. Be ready for the part 3 and next chapters when we will talk about the D-Day, 6 June 1944, and beyond, mission after mission, the engines, and more facts. The chapters of Part 3 will include Chapter 8, D-Day and Beyond, the Marauder's Finest Hour. Chapter 9, Engineering Truth, why the Marauder survived what others couldn't. Chapter 10, the Psychological Battle in the Cockpit. Let's start Chapter 8, D-Day and Beyond, the Marauder's Finest Hour. The B-26 Marauder's survival wasn't a miracle. It was engineering. Engineering that demanded expert hands, that punished sloppiness, and that turned disciplined aircrews into aerial surgeons. To understand why, we need to dig into the mechanics. The Topic 1, the wing loading problem, the root of fear. Let's be blunt. The B-26 had one of the highest wing loadings of any Allied bomber. Wing, 65 feet span in the shorts version. Weight, 37,000 to 40,000 pounds loaded. Wing loading, 47 to 50 pound per square feet. This meant high stall speed, high landing speeds, less lift, abrupt stall characteristics, no forgiveness for sloppy flying. This is the engineering reason it killed rookies. But now here's the twist. High wing loading is also why it excelled in combat. At high speeds, a short high-loading wing becomes extremely stable, accurate in bombing runs, hard to rattle with turbulence, more resistant to flak-induced oscillations. This is why the Marauder became the most accurate bomber of the war. The design wasn't flawed. The pilot's training was. Our next topic is the engine's power with a dark side. The twin Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp radials gave the Marauder raw power unmatched by other medium bombers. But that power came with consequences. Those engines demanded respect. Mismanage them and you cooked cylinders. Slam throttles too fast and you lost control. Improper mixture settings and you lost range or worse. However, when managed correctly, the R2800 was practically bulletproof. It could keep running with cylinders shot out, oil lines punctured, even entire cowl sections ripped away. Crews returned home on engines that were half dead, and still delivering enough power to fly the aircraft. The penultimate topic of this chapter is the airframe built like a knife, not a brick. The Marauder wasn't a flying tank like the B-17. It was a blade, a narrow aerodynamic spear, and its structural integrity was shockingly strong. Its fuselage was riveted with heavy-gauge aluminum, reinforced around the bomb bay, designed to withstand high G-loads at speed, streamlined to reduce drag. Combined with its speed, this meant damage that would doom a B-25, the Marauder could outrun. Damage that would cripple a B-17, the Marauder could fly through. The B-26 could absorb horrifying punishment and still return home. The last topic is the landing gear, the legendary nightmare. Let's be honest. The tricycle landing gear was a beast. Narrow track, tall stance, high landing speeds. A single bounce could turn into a ground loop. A late flare could become a fatal stall. A misaligned touchdown could snap the aircraft into pieces. This is why the early crash rate was so high. But here's the unexpected truth. Once pilots were trained properly, the B-26's landing gear became predictable, not dangerous. Its rugged construction allowed for rough field capability, higher speed landings, shock absorption under combat loads, but it required pilots to fly with absolute discipline. Let's go to the Chapter 10, the psychological battle in the cockpit. The Marauder didn't just test your flying skills. It tested your nerve. Long before facing German fighters, B-26 crews had to defeat something even more dangerous: their own fear. Let's begin to the fear topics. The first one is the fear of takeoff. New pilots dreaded one moment above all: the takeoff roll. With heavy bomb loads and full fuel, the B-26 demanded a long runway. If you lifted too early, you stalled. Too late, you overran the strip. And once airborne, you were flying a machine that wanted speed immediately. There was no second chance. The second fear topic, the fear of landing. You came in hot, faster than any bomber of its class. No gentle approaches, no soft touchdowns. It was violence or perfection, nothing in between. Pilots often said, landing a B-26 wasn't flying. It was negotiation. The third fear topic is the fear of the nickname. Pilots talked tough. They joked. They bragged. But inside, many were terrified. The B-26's reputation hovered in every briefing room like a ghost. Every crash reinforced it. Every funeral deepened it. The Germans weren't the Widowmakers. The B-26 was. And every pilot stepping into that cockpit knew it. The last topic of this chapter is how they conquered the fear. Not with speeches, not with courage alone, but with discipline, training, repetition, precision, respect for the aircraft. Once a pilot learned the Marauder's personality, the fear didn't disappear. It transformed into focus. And that focus saved lives. That was the part 3 of the video. More powerful things await us in part 4. Hundreds of missions with no combat losses, precision at impossible speeds, role in destroying Germany's supply network, modifications to engines, armament, armor, and more and more. Ready for part 4. Part 4 will deliver Chapter 11, the Mediterranean and the legend of the zero-loss Marauder groups. Chapter 12, Blood and Smoke, the Marauder over Europe. Chapter 13, the final evolution of the killer design. Let's dive in Chapter 11, the Mediterranean and the legend of the zero-loss Marauder groups. By 1943, the B-26 Marauder had left behind the jungles of the Pacific. Now it had a new battlefield: North Africa, Italy, and the Mediterranean. Hot, brutal, unforgiving. But here, the Marauder would achieve something that defied military logic. Entire Marauder groups flying hundreds of missions, without losing a single aircraft in combat. No other Allied bomber could claim that. None. The first topic will be the 319th Bomb Group, the miracle of the Mediterranean. The 319th Bomb Group arrived in North Africa battered but determined. Veterans of early disasters, survivors of training tragedies. They knew what the Marauder was capable of, both the danger and the extraordinary potential. Under new commanders and strict training, they flew low-level raids so fast that German anti-aircraft crews struggled to react. In late 1943, the 319th completed over 200 missions, with 0 aircraft lost to enemy fighters. That statistic shouldn't exist, but it does. The Luftwaffe simply couldn't catch the B-26 at low level. And when they tried, the Marauder shot back with 6 to 12.50 caliber machine guns, enough to tear a fighter apart. The second topic is the 320th Bomb Group, the impossible record. Then came the 320th Bomb Group. Their record. 314 missions, without a single aircraft lost to enemy action. 314. It is one of the most unbelievable survival streaks of any bomber unit in World War II. And they weren't flying milk runs. They hammered German supply depots, railroad bridges, reinforced coastal defenses, Luftwaffe airfields, convoys in the Mediterranean Sea, dozens of missions into areas crawling with flak batteries. Yet they kept coming home. Every time. How did they really do it? The blunt, ruthless answer is: they flew perfectly. Formations tight. Speeds high. Discipline absolute. Here is the cold math of their survival. 1. The Marauder was too fast for most German fighters to intercept cleanly. A B-26 at bombing speed could outrun Messerschmitt Bf-109s and nearly match Focke-Wulf FW-190s. 2. Tight formation flying created overlapping fields of defensive fire. A German fighter diving on one bomber exposed itself to 4 others. 3. Bombing accuracy meant fewer repeat missions. They hit their targets the first time. 4. Skilled pilots mastered the high-speed approach. No sloppy flying equals no unnecessary deaths. This wasn't luck. This was skill, discipline, and the raw aerodynamic brutality of the B-26 used correctly. I really hope you're not tired. We will continue on to Chapter 12, Blood and Smoke, the Marauder over Europe. By 1944, the Marauder had moved north into England. Its new battlefield, the flak-filled skies of occupied France, Belgium, and the heart of the Nazi war machine. Here, the Marauder would face the densest anti-aircraft defenses in Europe and survive. In this chapter, 4 topics await us. First one will be the European Air War, a wall of steel. German 88 and flak guns were the most terrifying anti-aircraft weapons ever built. They didn't just fire shells. They fired explosive traps, timed detonations that filled the sky with jagged steel fragments. A formation of Marauders flying into German flak looked like a wall of black clouds erupting in front of them. Shrapnel sliced into wings. Engines screamed from violent turbulence. Bombardiers held their breath as the aircraft shuddered. And still, they stayed in formation, because one broken formation meant death. Second topic for you is the precision runs, impossible missions done right. Unlike B-17s and B-24s, which often bombed from above 20,000 feet, Marauders attacked from lower altitudes, 10,000 to 14,000 feet, where flak was at its deadliest. But this lower altitude also meant accuracy. Terrifying accuracy. German generals, reviewing post-strike reports, believed massive fleets of aircraft were hitting them. But often, the devastation was caused by just 36 or 48 B-26s flying with surgical precision. The third topic of this chapter is the crews who refused to break. A Marauder crew had no illusions. They knew the danger. They heard flak ripping past the fuselage like hail on sheet metal. They felt the aircraft stagger when a near hit smashed into the tail section. But they held formation. Pilots gritted their teeth and fought the controls. Bombardiers stared through the Norden sight with nerves of steel. Gunners scanned the sky for fighters that never came close enough, because the Marauder was too fast for them. And when the bombs fell, they fell exactly where they were meant to. The last topic is the intriguing one: survivor stories that defy belief. The Marauder earned its redemption one mission at a time. Crews returned with engines on fire, holes the size of doors in the wing, landing gear destroyed, hydraulic systems bleeding fluid, oxygen systems shot out, radios gone, fuel tanks hit and leaking. And yet, they landed. On one engine. On no brakes. On a shredded wing. The Marauder refused to die. And so did its crews. Continue to Chapter 13, the final evolution of a killer design. The topics will be about the evolution models of B-26 and crazy numbers. By late 1943 and early 1944, the B-26 underwent modifications that turned it from a misunderstood aircraft into a polished masterpiece of wartime engineering. Here's how the killer design evolved into a legend. The B-26B, the standard of the sky. The B-26B models introduced upgraded armor plating, strengthened wing spars, improved electrical and hydraulic systems, heavier forward-firing machine guns, redesigned pilot instrumentation. These changes addressed the aircraft's early weaknesses without sacrificing speed. Let's go to the B-26F, the sweet spot. The B-26F variant made the Marauder more stable by increasing the angle of incidence of the wings, improving lift at low speeds, reducing landing and takeoff accidents. This was the single most important safety improvement in the entire Marauder program. And the B-26G, the final form. The G model introduced more aerodynamic refinements, reinforced internal structures, improved fuel systems, advanced bombsight integration, better defensive gun positions. This was the perfected Marauder, the version that crews trusted with their lives, and the version that earned the bomber's ultimate legacy, the lowest loss rate of any Allied bomber in World War II. How about the numbers that define the legend? Statistical truth. Over 110,000 combat hours flown. 129,943 bombs dropped. Over 5,200 missions. Powerplant, 2 R-2800 radials at 2,000 horsepower each. Combat altitude, 8,000 to 15,000 feet. Top speed, 315 to 340 miles per hour depending on model. Loss rate, lowest of any USAAF bomber. These numbers do not describe an accident-prone nightmare. They describe a weapon of unmatched precision and reliability once mastered. While we've made it this far, we only have the last part left. In the 5-part, we will close with final missions, crew testimonies, and the legacy that refused to die. Ready for the last part? What to expect in Part 5? Chapter 14, the final missions and the sunset of a killer. Chapter 15, the psychological redemption, pilots speak out. Chapter 16, the legacy of a bomber that refused to die. Chapter 17, final cinematic closing monologue. Don't relax, let's get started. Chapter 14, the final missions and the sunset of a killer. By early 1945, the European continent was collapsing under Allied pressure. The German war machine, once feared, was now starving. Rail lines shattered, bridges destroyed, fuel depots burned to ash. And behind that devastation, behind the long lines of broken steel and crushed concrete, were the fingerprints of the Martin B-26 Marauder. The bomber that once terrified American pilots was now the scalpel cutting through Hitler's arteries. The topic of chapter is THE Final RAIDS, Surgical Strikes at the Edge of Victory. B-26 groups flew their last months of the war with absolute confidence. These weren't the desperate early days. These were seasoned, hardened, experienced crews, flying a machine that now obeyed them like an extension of their will. Targets in early 1945 included German bridges over the Rhine, retreating armored columns, communications hubs inside Belgium and the Netherlands, last-ditch Luftwaffe airfields, reinforced positions near the Siegfried Line. The Marauders flew low, flew fast, flew with a precision the enemy couldn't stop. On April 19, 1945, just weeks before Germany surrendered, the 397th Bomb Group flew the final combat mission of the B-26 Marauder in Europe. Their target, a bridge at the Salzach River, one of the last lifelines for German retreat. The bombs hit perfectly. The bridge collapsed. Not a single Marauder was lost. It was the final signature of a bomber that had become unstoppable. Let's move on Chapter 15, the psychological redemption. Pilots speak out. With the war ending, something unexpected happened. The same pilots who once cursed the Marauder began to defend it with their lives. They fought the myths. They corrected the lies. They protected the reputation of the machine that had protected them. Let's go to crew testimonies. A damn good plane. Decades after the war, veterans gathered for reunions. They spoke openly and often emotionally about the Marauder. Their words weren't polished. They were raw, honest, and unforgettable. Bombardier, 322nd Bomb Group. I was terrified of her at first. Hell, we all were. But once you learned how she wanted to fly, there wasn't a safer ship in the sky. Pilot, 319th Bomb Group. I flew B-25s later. Good planes, but they weren't a Marauder. The B-26 was fast, strong. She'd bring you home. Tail Gunner, 397th Bomb Group. People said we flew a Widowmaker. I say we flew the most misunderstood aircraft in the war. Ground Crew Chief. Treat her right and she'd treat you right. Abuse her and she'd kill you. Simple as that. This last quote captures the heart of the Marauder's story. It wasn't a machine you used. It was a machine you partnered with. A machine that demanded respect and returned loyalty. How could I not tell you about the legacy of a bomber that refused to die? Chapter 16. When the war ended, the Marauder didn't get a Hollywood ending. It didn't get a victory parade. It didn't get a perfect legacy. Instead, it was quietly retired, replaced by the faster, more modern A-26 Invader. Some were scrapped. Others were melted down. A handful survived as museum pieces. Silent now. But for those who knew the truth, the B-26 was not a relic. It was a mentor, a teacher, a guardian. It taught pilots discipline. It taught crews precision. It taught the Army Air Forces that engineering brilliance means nothing if training isn't equal to it. One of the topics of this chapter is the statistics that rewrite history. Let's state the truth plainly, so plainly that no one can ever twist it. The Martin B-26 Marauder had the lowest loss rate of any bomber fielded by the United States Army Air Forces. In World War II, better than the B-17, better than the B-24, better than the B-25, better than the A-20, better than every single one. This is not speculation. This is the official recorded combat data. The Widowmaker redeemed itself, not because the design changed, but because the pilots rose to meet it. Why the myth still matters. The story of the B-26 Marauder isn't just about aviation. It's about the relationship between fear and mastery, between failure and redemption, between a machine and the men who learned to understand it. The aircraft symbolizes something bigger: discipline over recklessness, precision over improvisation, courage that grows out of competence, redemption through respect and mastery. It is, in every sense, a case study in turning weakness into strength. Can you believe we've reached final cinematic closing monologue, Chapter 17? War forgets muck and knees quickly. The metal grows cold. The paint fades. The engines go silent. But a few machines, the rare ones, leave their shape pressed into history. The Martin B-26 Marauder is one of them. It began as a misunderstood weapon, feared by the very men who were ordered to fly it. It killed. It punished. It demanded perfection. And because of that demand, it forged some of the finest crews the Allied air effort ever produced. When those men mastered the Marauder, something extraordinary happened. The aircraft that once filled coffins began filling history books with records no other bomber could match. Lowest loss rate, highest accuracy, unbroken streaks of survival. It didn't win by brute force. It won by discipline, by skill, by trust between man and machine. It won because the men who feared it refused to surrender to that fear. And in the end, the Marauder didn't just redeem itself. It redeemed the men who believed in it. A bomber that refused to die. A crew that refused to break. A story that refuses to be forgotten. The Martin B-26 Marauder. The Widowmaker that fought back and won. 20th century history. One photograph at a time, telling the stories the world must not forget.